There was a startup, like 10 years back, essentially had not built any software, and they had literally come with a spreadsheet. And
Right.
I saw the founder being surrounded by the stakeholders, trying to understand, how is this really going to work?
You often actually say this, Amey, that if you can survive our POC, you can sell anywhere. So, can you please first walk us through? Over the last decade, JioGenNext has supported 228 startups, facilitated 60 plus POCs across Reliance and Jio ecosystem, seen $834 million raised by its portfolio, and witnessed 38 acquisitions by the industry, all while backing founders who actually solve real problems at India's scale. This year, JioGenNext has actually doubled down, announcing 21 deep tech startups across robotics, world models, grid security, programmable finance, drone digital twins, and industrial AI. And joining us today on front page is Amey Mashelkar, head of JioGenNext, the strategic innovation program inside Reliance that has quietly become one of the most important pipelines for deep tech in India. So, under Amey's leadership, JioGenNext has actually evolved from a cohort accelerator into a market access engine where startups don't just actually learn, they plug into one of the world's largest enterprise engines, test in real world environments, fight through actually production grade constraints, and earn the one credential money can't buy, which is if your technology works at Reliance scale, it works anywhere in the world. Amey, a very warm welcome to you to Front Page. We are very, very excited to have you with us.
Thank you, Sudhit. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you.
We are actually really excited to deep dive in with you because of all of the new things that you're doing under your leadership. So, actually, to kick things off, Amey, what is changing in India's deep tech ambition right now? Let's start with there.
Yeah, so I think if you just uh, go back a decade, India was evolving as a startup ecosystem, and it required mentorship in several areas. The founders needed a lot of mentorship and
Hmm.
advice from different quarters, right from how to think of an idea, how to sort of build an idea prototype, how to take it to market, scale it up, etc. So our role at that point in time was to work with founders to help
Hmm.
them sort of think through all these different phases of their growth, and also connect them to the right mentors within the ecosystem. I think with the advent of deep tech, certainly a lot of things have changed now, because I think there is a lot of focus on even large enterprises adopting deep tech and AI
Hmm.
to gain massive massive on productivity, as well as to unlock new business models. So I think this is truly kind of an inflection point for the startup ecosystem. So from where we were like 10 years back to where
Hmm.
things are today, there's been a massive shift. And I think even in terms of the kind of background rich experience that founders are coming with,
Hmm.
the understanding of the problem areas, I think we are seeing a lot more maturity in that respect as well. So certainly, I think deep tech is going to change how startups are going to build businesses in the future.
Fair enough, Amey. I mean, you talk about a mature, evolved ecosystem now as compared to, let's say, a decade back. So basically, from accelerator to India's deep tech engine, for years, startup programs focused on only coaching and demo days, like as you just mentioned. So GeoGen Next has actually shifted that model, Amey. It's gone from mentorship to market access, from presentations to production environments,
I think
from
we were
basically just advice to enterprise scale validation inside Reliance. So my
absolutely.
question is, most accelerators, Amey, groom founders, but you actually validate technologies at industrial scale. So what triggered this shift from mentorship to market access, and Is this the moment India stops exporting talent and starts exporting deep tech capabilities?
That's a really interesting question. I think a lot of factors have contributed to this shift in our focus. First of all, as a startup ecosystem, I think there is plenty of sort of mentorship and advice available to founders today.
Hmm,
Whether it is from, they themselves come with a lot of experience, with, especially when it comes to kind of building B2B companies,
hmm,
and in several cases also B2C. Um, they have a lot of relationships in the industry. It's easier to get access to people who have expertise to help them out in different aspects of their business. I
hmm,
think where we saw our model shifting is that as Reliance grew as a company,
hmm,
as our appetite for integrating new technologies into the company grew, we were always on the lookout for great talent and innovation. So where market access program today sits is between the vast Reliance ecosystem that you see,
hmm,
uh, which has a lot of technology needs, and the startup ecosystem, which has grown to a significant level where it's not just about mentorship anymore, but it is mentorship in the context of being a customer or giving access to giving access to distribution or becoming giving access to the market. So I think that's the bridge that we're trying to build with the new model of the accelerator.
which actually is also very encouraging, Amey, because it tends to give a lot of the startups, give a lot of the ecosystem a decent runway, or for example, something to look forward to, which was probably not the case earlier. Which actually brings me to this point, which is that the MAP 25 thesis, which is hard tech, real impact. So this year's MAP cohort doubled in size, which is 21 deep tech companies across robotics, world models, OT, cybersecurity, industrial automation, programmable finance, drone digital twins, energy intelligence. So, what has convinced you, Amey, that India is ready for deep tech at scale and not just SaaS and consumer applications? And what patterns did you see in these 21 founders that actually signal maturity in the ecosystem?
I think the founders' experience really matters.
Hmm,
They have, in a lot of cases, they have already built a startup, having exited a startup and building a new one now. The founders and the core team that gets assembled to solve some of these problems, we see come with a lot of rich experience. So that is the first thing that we see. Secondly, there is already a real world validation that they've done. Not at our scale, but certainly with a lot of other customers at a decent scale,
hmm,
and therefore that is also a great validation point for us, right? And the other thing is that with the advent of AI technologies and all the LLMs and all the infrastructure that's available today to try
hmm,
new things out, um, them having access to all this infrastructure also has made it easier for them to build a startup to a certain level, right? So I think it's a combination of all these factors.
sure.
And the other thing is that what makes market access program unique is that Reliance is a conglomerate. So we have
Hmm,
several businesses, on the energy side, in infrastructure, in telecom,
hmm,
retail, omni-channel, digital, etc. And so the test bed is really vast, right?
hmm,
So we don't while we look at this as horizontally in terms of technologies, so application of AI across everything,
hmm,
but at the same time there are multiple use cases within the company for the business, within the company for different functions within the business, as well as for different verticals. So I think that is very interesting about the program. It's just the
sure.
vastness and the kind of playing field that we are kind of able to give these founders.
Very quickly, Amey, I just wanted to pick your brain on this before I move on to the JioGenNext POC playbook. Uh, is it correct for me to understand it this way when you said that across the board, given Reliance being a conglomerate, there is such a huge test bed? does that also give a certain sense of encouragement or a sense of maybe comfort or a sense of ease to all the new startups that, okay, wait a minute, I am part of a huge conglomerate in terms of at least trying to understand all these aspects which I'm starting up on, and I have a place to find a certain sense of ease with my systems, for example, or the way I would go ahead and produce or get into that zone and get a little more routine about everything and then start to expand.
Yeah, I think what we offer is an opportunity to become a very large anchor customer, right?
Hmm.
And a partner in your growth. So, finally, it comes down to the founders having deep, meaningful conversations with different stakeholders within our company.
Hmm.
So, on day zero, they literally, when they come into the accelerator, they get to meet some really fascinating people and leaders from the organization. And when they understand their perspective, I think it kind of, sort of also unlocks in their mind
Yeah.
new ideas of how they can go about actually building their product, uh, and sort of, taking the opportunity. So I think as much as us being a test bed, or providing a POC opportunity, it is these conversations that really are at the crux of everything. And if you're able to build that relationship with the right stakeholder, then I think, sky's the limit, as far as we are concerned. So we've seen founders coming at multiple stages of their evolution, and suddenly seeing, life in a very different way when it comes to scale, and then going back and saying that, hey, look, not literally going back to the drawing board, but saying that, hey, look, if you have to solve the problem for them, then we need to look at, these two or three things differently, right? So I think that's really the beauty of the opportunity that they get through this program.
Which actually clearly brings me to this thought, as you just mentioned, those are the value additions, which is, you often actually say this, Amey, that if you can survive our POC, you can sell anywhere. So can you please first walk us through the 90-day POC blueprint from, well, day zero, as you just mentioned,
Yeah.
scoping to data access to KPIs and to production gates?
Sure. So it obviously starts on day zero. It starts with the conversation with the right people, um, and if the stakeholders involved have not seen a product or innovation like that, and they feel that this is a unique way of solving the problem, then I think, the POC interest is very, very high.
Hmm.
Obviously, after exchange of, standard documentation, it's supposed to simulate a real enterprise deployment and not just a lab experiment, right? So there is sort of a joint execution sprint um, between the startup and the business unit inside the company.
Hmm.
So typically, we look at four stages. One is, of course, understanding the scope and alignment, where we're looking at, if let's say it's reducing some equipment downtime, or it's improving some throughput on in some other part of our business, or securing some network. We identify some of the key success metrics, and the data or system that is required, access that is required to that data, and the
Hmm.
decision makers who will review the outcome, right? So it all goes into sort of a POC charter that sets the tone. And then, of course, the next step is to do sort of the environment setup,
Hmm.
where we facilitate access, whether it's data or APIs or a pilot site. There are compliances that need to be taken care of. Then the startup kind of sets up the environment and integrates with existing systems and sort of establishes kind of a baseline, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then the third phase is really execution and measurement. So this is the live test phase, right? Uh, Startup runs its product in production like conditions. We
Hmm.
track weekly performance against some KPIs, accuracy, uptime, cost impact, or savings, depending on the use case. And then the folks who co-own this phase sort of get involved so that the feedback is operational and not theoretical, right?
Fair.
So actually, everybody gets to see what was achieved out of
Hmm.
this, test. And then ultimately, if you go through the first three phases, then you're ready for sort of validation and scale up, right? So we consolidate
Sure.
all the data that we've got, we compare it to whatever the baseline was before
Hmm.
we started, and we present it to the right stakeholders. And then from there, if the metrics hold, then the project moves into commercial phase. So typically, I mean, if you have to look at this as a four phase kind of a program that happens over a 90 days period. Uh,
Hmm.
Sometimes these things take longer, sometimes they don't take that long, depending on the complexity of the POC.
Sure.
Uh, and then, obviously, once you get into commercial phase, then sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about some examples later on. But I think that's typically how we like to create the POC charter and sort of track it.
Which actually brings me to this thought, Amey. What are the non-negotiables a startup must hit to earn scale up inside Reliance?
Uh, I think the first non-negotiable is that you need to be able to convince the stakeholder about your value proposition, and you need to build and establish a working relationship with the right people
Hmm.
inside, and that takes a little bit of that takes time, and it takes follow-ups, and it involves process, and it involves relationship building. So I think that's
Sure.
really, really critical, right? So I would say that is what will guarantee long-term success for you within our ecosystem. But
Hmm.
for the purpose of the POC, I think the non-negotiables are that the outcome should be measurable. So
Hmm.
wherever the baseline was, obviously the output that we get from whatever that we're deploying has to be exponential in some
Sure.
sense, right? It can also be incremental, but we prefer it to be exponential. There should be integration readiness. So, I mean, there shouldn't be issues around,
Hmm.
because we work with a lot of legacy systems, so integration should be easy. There should be sort of reliability and repeatability in this whole thing. And the internal stakeholder buy-in is super important. So I think these are some of the important factors that go into this being successful.
Clearly, Amey, when you've just put that down as a long, uh, very important list, clearly what you say is true. If the POC tests well with you, definitely you can sell anywhere in the world.
No, I mean, I think this is what we like to follow. But like I
Hmm.
said, I mean, I think we have to be flexible. Sometimes the timelines are much shorter when we want to try
Sure.
something out. And sometimes, the problem is just not evident. And so there is a problem discovery phase that one goes through, and it takes time. So it really depends.
But honestly speaking, the systems that you just listed out and spoke about, Amey, seem to be fairly robust to be able to deal with all those factors. Which actually brings me to this, which is the MAP outcomes and proof of impact, which is you've had multiple cohorts, Amey,
Yeah.
where startups entered with cutting edge technology and exited with live deployments, enterprise revenue, and global credibility. Maybe could you share one or two examples from previous cohorts where a startup came in with potential and walked out with, well, a validated product and meaningful business impact inside Reliance, or for that matter, on the broader market? What's changed for them in terms of capability, confidence? Confidence, clearly, I'm sure, would be sky high. Or, for example, go to market after a Reliance scale POC.
Yeah. I think we've had varied outcomes. I mean, even within the successful outcomes, we've seen several sort of interesting outcomes. For example, there was a startup, like 10 years back in
Hmm.
one of our earliest cohorts that essentially had not built any software, and they had literally come with a spreadsheet, um,
Hmm.
that kind of demonstrated how uh, one could reconcile accounts between two different systems,
Hmm.
and it could be done using software, but they wanted to, for the purpose of the demo, they actually used a spreadsheet to show the logic. And
Right.
I literally, I mean, I saw the founder being surrounded by the stakeholders, trying to understand, what is, how is this really going to work? Because that was a real pain point that, they were facing. And he said that, look, if you guys are willing to bet on me, then I will go and build this for you,
Nice.
and then deploy it within your system. And we said yes, and we gave them a pilot order, and we gave them a commercial order, and we built that system. And they went on to get other customers as well. That company got acquired ultimately. But
Hmm.
you know, so if you come into the room with stakeholders and you actually show that you're solving a real problem, I don't think that POC is something that we need to push for, at least as a
Hmm.
program, or as people. So that is one side of the spectrum. The other one is like a fully functional
Hmm.
platform, already live with several customers, but not at the scale at which we were looking at. And
Hmm.
this was in the HR area. And then today, that system is deployed across 14 of our businesses.
Nice.
Is being used by 350 users within the company,
Hmm.
and has processed close to like a million applications, and also integrated with all the core systems within the company. Right. So this kind of scale was not seen by
Hmm.
the startup when they came into the program, while they were live with several other customers. There's another example, which was like a fun experience for me personally, where um, the startup was building a new kind of user experience
Hmm.
that it could embed into any kind of app to make it more Bharat ready. So
Right.
people could understand what to do within an app in their language of choice.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we thought it was really interesting for Jio to kind of try out, and that ultimately became a part of one of our main, I mean, our main apps, and scaled to millions of users. But the whole experience,
Would you be
how,
able to give the name, Amey, for
yeah,
that
so
one?
this startup is called Genie, and it got later on it got acquired by Whatfix, and the
Uh-huh.
founder is now onto his second innings. He started a new startup that he talked to me about, a few months back. But that whole experience was very interesting, where our leaders were sitting with the founder and Kushagra, and and they were just talking about, and he was giving them a demo, a mock demo on something else that he had
Hmm.
tried. And they were just fascinated by it, and they said that, hey, look, we want to try this out. So sometimes things can go that fast as well. But yeah, I mean, these are the kind of examples that we've seen in our journey.
Which is fascinating, Amey, because this brings me to one little thought. Very quickly, I want to ask you, as Amey, I mean, you've had such a wonderful experience, long, rich experience. You've seen so many people coming in with, a sense of excitement, a dream, etc. And when those dreams get realized, like you just mentioned, he's on to his second innings. What is it that you have probably seen as an evolution in yourself, Amey, uh, when you've gone through these experiences? Very quickly, I'd like to understand from you, and how is it probably affected the systems under your leadership?
I think, as a person, as an individual, first of all, I think I'm in love with the whole startup ecosystem. When I started off, as the head of the accelerator, it was really about managing the program,
Hmm.
and getting it off the ground. And there were a lot of there's a lot of operational fixes that you have to do in the early part of your journey. But as time goes by, you fall more in love with the ecosystem, because you see people
Sure.
coming out with new ideas, and technology changes so fast that
Hmm.
it never gets boring, right? So I think,
Hmm.
what has remained constant for me in some sense is the love for the ecosystem, and continuing to do what I'm doing. Uh, but at the same time, also quickly kind of gauging what will fly within our ecosystem and
Hmm.
what could struggle in some sense, and kind of directing my advice towards uh, that to the founders. I think that understanding has definitely improved, and I guess it's kind of beneficial for the founders when I talk to them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that kind of evolution, razor sharp advice, Amey, definitely helps so many lives. Which actually brings me to this. India's 1 lakh crore deep tech push and JioGenNext role. Very important. I wanted to understand this. So, India just announced 1 lakh crores rupees RDI mission, essentially sovereign venture capital for deep tech. JioGenNext has been operationalizing this philosophy for years, taking frontier technology and testing it inside real complex systems, as you have just been guiding us through this. How do you see JioGenNext aligning with this national push, and where do Reliance scale POCs sit in this new ecosystem between, let's say, government research and development, private innovation, and commercial deployment?
Yeah, so I think first of all, the 1 lakh crore RDI mission is a very strong signal that India wants to move from importing innovation to owning it in AI, semiconductors, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, etc. I think we sit at the intersection of that ecosystem between research, startups, and large-scale deployment. So,
Hmm.
in some sense, our role as JioGenNext, we feel, is to build that bridge, of innovation and industrial scale validation
Hmm.
um, for technologies that are coming out of labs, right? So that continues to be the focus. That's what we've
Sure.
been doing so far. Um, I think when it's in the lab, technology is just a promise, but when it's deployed at scale, then it becomes proven, right? So I think
Hmm.
we are trying to build the missing middle between research and commercial deployment. And that can de-risk innovation. It can shorten the lab to market cycle. It can generate the data and business confidence
Hmm.
needed for scale, right?
Hmm.
So, in some sense, we would love to play in our own small way uh,
Hmm.
the role of a national bridge for deployment. A place where startups, researchers, enterprises can co-create, validate, and scale. So, I think that's how we see our role evolving in the context of this huge initiative of the RDA mission.
Very wonderfully and very humbly put across, Amey, that you want to hit that sweet spot of aspiration, which is very nice. What do you feel? Does this moment kind of unlock for deep tech founders, Amey? And how does MAP help convert India's ambition into execution?
I think if you just take a look at what's happening in deep tech, India has a significant role to play, according to me, in the whole robotics and industrial automation space.
Hmm.
We see a lot of technologies and innovations in that area where we are going to be the first to build for the world. Trying and testing it in our environment and then exporting that technology to the rest of the world. And I think that's what deep tech founders really aspire for.
Hmm.
They just don't want to stick to a particular market, and I think that is wonderful. I think the investment that large companies, big tech
Hmm.
companies, everybody around the world that's making in data centers and AI is just wonderful because that will give the opportunity for the deep tech founders to leverage that. Uh, I think just founders being aware of the fact that we have to start building our own capacity in India, and venture capital also directing capital in that direction,
Hmm.
and large enterprises like us giving early opportunities to startups. I think these things have to come together
Hmm.
for the deep tech founders to build meaningful businesses that can export to the world.
And you believe, yes, they will come together.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We absolutely believe that it's all coming together, and the very high conviction in that. We are seeing great examples of
Could
things
you maybe
happening.
share a couple?
So, take a company like in Pune, there's a company called Unbox Robotics, right?
Hmm.
It's fascinating. Their journey is fascinating. I met them in 2018 or 19, and
Hmm.
then I met them again, a few months back, and just the evolution to see that has been remarkable. I mean, they've gone from zero to 100, right, in a short
Nice.
period of time, and building all the technologies within India, completely
Wow.
internalized, and
Hmm.
going through all the rigor of certifications and international compliances and requirements, and now exporting these robots to the rest of the world. I think if two guys out of just having worked for a few years with a few companies, meeting in an accelerator, building a company like this, if they can
Hmm.
do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, it truly is very encouraging and inspirational, Amey. Thank you for sharing that one. Uh, the founder quality is the logical segue into this, as you mentioned just now with that example. Your framework goes beyond product. You evaluate founders on self-awareness, as you've mentioned quite a bit, integrity, empathy, capability, culture, and most importantly, long-term ambition. Not about can they build it, but more importantly, as you've mentioned, can they build it responsibly, repeatably, and at scale? So, which founder traits consistently predict, Amey, long term success in deep tech? And more importantly, how do you test for integrity plus self awareness in that first meeting that you have?
Yeah. So I think founders, when they meet you while they're just starting out, um, have a certain understanding of the world. And as they go through the process of building their business, evolve themselves.
Hmm,
Uh, I think founders is not a a founder is not a domain expert in some sense that
sure.
founder has to be a master of all, right? And I
Hmm,
think uh, those that are able to embrace the complexity of the different tasks that they have to take on as they build their business are the ones that ultimately succeed in the long run. I mean,
hmm,
from hiring to managing a team to operational stuff to raising capital to selling, which is the most important thing in building a business. To really focusing on innovation, to investing in innovation, not just paying lip service to it. I think all these things, to do that and do it successfully, takes something else, and
sure.
that's not evident starting out, because when they're starting out, it's they're not seeing the entire picture. So
Hmm,
I think the bet is on a few things. If you see in the person, the bet is on that. One is self awareness. I mean, do they are they humble enough, and are they aware enough to know what they don't know, right?
nice. Yeah,
Like, here's what we figured out, and here's what we are still learning. I think
sure.
that is a trait that I like to see in a founder. That is a
Hmm,
great sign, uh, because that immediately puts me and the founder in a comfortable spot where we are trying to
hmm,
figure out the same thing together, right?
hmm,
And so there can be a discussion then, as
hmm,
opposed to, you know, I've built this wonderful product, and all you need to do is to, just take it and use it, right? And it
hmm,
might not meet my requirement. So that's the first thing. The second thing is obviously integrity. I mean, do you have integrity overall? Integrity even in terms of, if you make a commitment to something, do you follow through?
yeah.
Uh, it's not just integrity about money; it is integrity overall.
Hmm,
As and some of those value systems, can we see those early
hmm,
on? And if there is high level of integrity, then I think that's certainly something that encourages us. And of course, clarity of purpose. I mean, why are you building what you're building, right? End of the day,
nice.
you have to be driven by some passion or mission that you're on. And if that is not there, then you might lose your way along. as you're moving forward. So I think these are three things that typically I look for when I
Hmm.
start a conversation with a startup in the early stages. Um,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Honestly, words of wisdom, Amey, and I'm sure what you just shared with us and to all the probably potential founders who are listening in, that's genuinely gold because I feel what you've just talked about, those three aspects, if they're, very, very integrated in personality, they tend to percolate down into the organization
yeah,
and that organization grows for sure. That's my
absolutely,
thought.
absolutely. Even the team members, the early team, they kind of look at the founders, and if the founders are following these principles, then they kind of emulate that. I
Yeah.
think that's very well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. Of course, India is shifting, from IT services to industrial and infrastructural intelligence. So I wanted to understand. So from consuming technology to designing foundational technology, from really basically proving abroad first to proving in India and exporting globally. How do you see India's role evolving in global deep tech, Amey? You've mentioned robotics. How about industrial AI, sovereign compute, OT security, programmable finance? And honestly, which of these categories will produce India's, let's say, the NVIDIA moment first?
I think the NVIDIA moment would be in industrial AI and robotics. That's my
Hmm.
uh, bet, you can say, where we
Okay.
are blending data automation and real-time intelligence. I think as we build factories in the country, as we automate factories, and as we get more and more deeply involved in manufacturing as a country, become self-reliant, I think uh, that is where the opportunity lies for us.
Hmm.
That's where we will see some real breakthroughs. You have to remember that NVIDIA is not a moment, right? NVIDIA was built over I don't know how many decades, and
Sure.
how many times they actually reached a point of saying that, hey, look, we don't know if you can carry on. And that's
Hmm.
kind of, in the public, people know about it that the company went through its ups and downs, but they kind of stuck to their guns and they kind of, kept pushing forward. I
Hmm.
think it's a marathon, and it's going to take multiple decades for us to sort of build in this space and then look back and say that, hey, look, this was our moment when everything changed.
Hmm.
So I
Nice.
don't see this as a few years, but I think it's a multi-decade approach that we have to take and keep pushing in that direction. Uh,
But we are on the right path, Amey?
I think so. I think we are on the
Okay.
right path. I think there is awareness on what we have, what we don't have, and building capacity around what we don't have,
Hmm.
uh, both in the private sector as well as within the government. I think people are pushing in the right direction. Uh, it's early days, but obviously, I mean, folks like us as JioGenNext, we have to focus on
Hmm.
building these startups and ensuring that they leverage whatever ecosystem and infrastructure is available and keep moving forward.
Wonderful. Amey, honestly speaking, it's been a true pleasure speaking with you. You have genuinely given us some wonderful insights, some wonderful, encouraging statements regarding the new founders looking for opportunities and building some dreams of their own. And I'm pretty sure, as you've mentioned again and again, that you love the ecosystem. You have served in it with such astute experience over a period of time, and you have honed your skills to such a degree that you're now genuinely making sure that a lot of people take off. And of course, the fact that you're acing it is the tennis reference, which I had to do, given the fact that you're passionate about the sport.
No, thank you so much. In fact, in tennis, you kind of you don't learn to play in a day or in a month or even 6 months. So I'm still learning how to play the sport, and
Right.
I'm continuing to learn how to play. Uh, in the field of startups and the startup ecosystem as well. So it's
Nice.
daily learning for me.
Wonderful. And that it's that humility which is forever going to be evergreen and making sure that the system keeps growing. Thank you so much, Amey, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.